we are once again in the lovely state of California. I'm sitting here with an age-old friend. I think I was actually there when you were born, wasn't I? I was there. I caught you as you came out of the birth canal. You were slippery and slimy. And I always said, she's a slippery one. But I caught you, spanked your little bottom, and you let out your first yelp. And I thought, young Stacey is born.
I'm so grossed out and really bothered.
I was a little grossed out, too. It was kind of a gross experience, but it was messy. But you know, I brought you into this world, and so here you are, my child. Actually, I feel like we've known each other forever, but what has it been? I would say 6 years?
I think it's 6 years.
Wow. That's not that long, really, but it feels a lot longer than
I think
6
we've
years.
lived a lot of life. I think when you live a spiritual journey with each other, you live a lot of life.
Yeah. And we were both kind of new to this whole thing. I mean, not really, you know, but when we met, I think we kind of, you know, kind of like I watched a show called Wicked Attraction, and it talks about how two people come together and then it ends up becoming really a bad thing for the rest of the world, you know. I think that's kind of how it was.
Does that make you think of us?
Yeah, it's like, you know, we were both on our own journey, and then we sort of came together and exploded, and now we're in complete heresy and driving as many people away as possible. So.
Driving as many people toward truth as possible.
Yeah. So, Stacey Robbins.
Hi, honey.
How are you?
I love seeing you. I do. I'm just going to stare at you. You look good. I'm happy.
Now, last time I saw you, I was walking, right?
You were walking. You were not very happy. But you were here. Yeah. And that was Arizona, and that was in summer?
Okay, so it wasn't that long ago.
I believe it was summer.
Yeah, it was right around. We were talking today. I was talking with Jasmine today. It was right around almost exactly a year ago today that I came home from rehab.
Wow.
And when I came home, you know, I was technically walking, meaning I could take about 10 steps in a day's time. Mm-hmm. So I had crutches and was in a wheelchair anytime we went anywhere. But that was a year ago. So
yeah, the last time I saw you was June 15th. I think it was something like that. Around that time, June 17th. And then you guys moved not long after. And then I got sad because I didn't know when I was going to see you again. And then when I got your email a couple weeks ago, I was like, yay.
Yeah, that's right. Because we moved then to Olympia, which we've been there for about 4 or 5 months now. So
are you happy?
Good, yeah. I like it. You know, it's more Angie and the kids type thing. I mean, I like it. Anything's better than Arizona, you know. It is really cool, and it's nice. Like, we got up the other morning, and there was snow on the ground, and the kids were just excited. It looks like it'll be a white Christmas, and, you know, we'll get up early in the morning, and there's fog, like you can barely even see across the street. So it's a whole new environment. The kids will get to experience all the seasons, the leaves falling, and you know, and all that kind of stuff that we never got in Arizona or even California when I lived there. So that, in that respect, it really is a cool place for the kids to live. And the place we live is really kind of a homey environment, you know. It's the type of place where everybody knows everybody. And if my kids are downtown causing trouble, I would get calls from 5 or 6 people who said, hey, by the way, I saw your kids downtown, and they were, you know, spray painting, you know, pornographic pictures on the side of the church or something.
Sounds just like Landon and Sid,
exactly.
Right?
It sounds like something they do. But it's cool. You know, the whole town is really involved in the high school football teams and baseball teams. And they're, you know, anytime there's a game day, the whole town's involved. So it's really a small town atmosphere. It's a cool place to live. You know, it reminds me a lot of Hollywood, which I really loved when I lived there. There's a lot of freaks, a lot of homeless people, a lot of tattoo parlors, and, you know, it's just my kind of place. I like it, you know, and so it's good all the way around. I don't know that I would have chosen to live there. If I were single, I'd be living here in California. I wouldn't be in Olympia. But to raise a family, it really is a cool place. So it's good.
Good.
Yeah, you guys will have to come out for a visit sometime. So.
When it's not snowing? I will be happy to. God, I
snow's
just can't.
the best time. I love the snow.
I was raised on the East Coast, the Northeast, and I'm so allergic
to
snow.
That's a little bit much, though. That kind of goes crazy with snow. And Olympia's not bad. Like, it doesn't snow enough, you know. But when it does, everyone's really excited. Kind of like when it rains in Arizona, you know.
Sure, I get that.
So it's cool. So how have you been? How's life?
You know, it's good. It's been a full couple of months. You moved, and then right as we were leaving Arizona, right after the podcast show that you and I did in June, we were driving back and Rock turned to me and I said, "Oh, you got to sign our contract for our lease for this next year in the house we'd been renting." And he's like, "Actually,
he hadn't
I want to tell you,
yet.
he hadn't told me because he didn't want to ruin our vacation for me, because he knows I'm such a mama bear and I always want to, I'm so driven to get my family situated. And he knew that I would be obsessing the whole time and I would have missed my visit with you and my cousins. So he told me on the drive back and I just was like, oh. So we went through this whole process of finding a new place. And then as soon as we landed, so that was June and then July and then August we moved. And then as soon as the kids started school in September, I started writing a new book. I mean, like I was like a woman possessed, and I'm so excited about that. So that's been a lot. And then a marketing company approached me on the drive to Arizona and said, "We love your book, Bloom Beautiful, the one I released last year." And they said, "We want to do a 365-day app. Would you turn it into 365 days of inspiration?" And so they just financed that, and it'll be out on Apple in 2 weeks. So it's been
awesome.
a really
What's it called?
Well, the book is called "You're Not Crazy and You're Not Alone."
Okay.
It's the subtitle is long, but it's Losing the Victim, Finding Your Sense of Humor, and Learning to Love Yourself Through Hashimoto's. So it's really for women. What a Stacey
title.
I know, a little wordy, but it's for women with the autoimmune disease Hashimoto's. But it's really for any woman on the journey of loving herself, which that fits for a lot of people.
Oh, I think it does. Any woman or man.
Yeah, and Rocky even loves it. And I had so many men and male doctors review it. And Rocky was like, "Gosh, this is a women's book. Why do you have so many male doctors reviewing it?" I said, "I know. It just came to my heart." And I had a good mix of men and women, but you would have thought that it would have been female heavy. Yeah. The men were just like, "This is so essential. I needed this to understand my patients better. There's no other book like this out there." So I feel grateful.
Oh, that's good.
And then the app is from my Bloom Beautiful book. So the app is going to be called Bloom Beautiful, and it's 365 days of inspiration for your soul. So every day it'll pull up a really inspirational quote or a thoughtful question to ponder.
And it's available now?
That'll be the "You're Not Crazy and You're Not Alone" is available on Amazon right now in a softback or Kindle. And then the Bloom Beautiful app is coming out in about a week or two, right before Christmas.
Oh, that's cool.
And
I'm coming out with a book like a day later called "Yes, You Are."
Yes, you are crazy.
Yes.
And you are alone.
Yeah.
And you are so screwed.
Yes, you are, and you are screwed. And 10 things to do about it.
Thank you. You're going to make my book so successful because people are going to want to end their lives after reading yours, and they're going to see my book.
Exactly. Well, that's really, really cool. Good for you.
Thanks for asking.
Jasmine was telling me just yesterday that I didn't know you came out with a new book. I had no. I'm sure you told me. I'm sure you did, but I just didn't check the emails, or I've been sort of out of it lately. But
I know you've had.
I'm excited. That's really, really cool.
Thank you.
That's good.
You're such a champion of me, and I want to just thank you for that.
I
You're
love
so my
parading
advocate.
the Stacey cause to the world.
I love you. I love you.
So let's chit chat. I was talking with someone on the phone the other day. I don't remember who it was. I thought it was Jasmine, but we were kind of talking about every conversation starts out with, what's wrong with our thinking? Because clearly in Christianity, it seems that we're missing something. There's this missing part that makes it to where it's not working for people, or people aren't understanding it. And we've covered this a million times. And every time we have a conversation, there's like a new thing. Well, this is a problem. This is the way. Everybody's got their own opinion. But one of the things that was brought up was this idea of God, of being one with God, and how we translate that in our minds and what exactly that means. Most people, when they're praying, they have this vision of God being in the upper right-hand corner of their bedroom, or when they're worshiping, their hands are in the air and they're sort of looking out into the wilderness, kind of looking for him, like he's somewhere up there and we're down here, and we're trying our best to worship him, because then he'll show up and then a step closer to reality is the idea that, and I've said it a million times, that he lives inside of us. That's the difference between now and the Old Testament times. And now he's one with us. He's inside of us. But a step further than that I think that people sort of don't quite get. Even whenever we say he lives inside of you, you're sort of fit on him like a glove, there's still that idea that there's him and then there's us, that there's this separation between us. Mm-hmm. And he lives inside me, and I'm doing my best to submit to him and to know him in the context of him living within me. The person I was talking to brought up the point that it's even closer than that. It's not just that he lives inside you, but we are one in the sense that we are kind of like a salad dressing with oil and water or oil and vinegar. We are pureed together. We are one in every respect. He is us and we are him. We are one. There's no separation anymore. You understand, like, even if we say he lives inside of us, there's still in our human mind this idea that there's a separation between us and him. Mm-hmm. And he's just closer now. He's inside us. He's closer, but there's still this separation. Right. And coming into the understanding, which it almost borderlines the feeling of arrogance to say, and Christian red flags go up all over the place. Whenever you start saying we are one, I am him and he is me, immediately people are like, well, that is going over the line. But I am becoming more and more convinced that Christianity will not work, and all the aspects of living a daily life and I even cringe saying this, living a godly life, because that comes across as works to us. That's been beaten in our brains for so long. But actually having a changed life and having a contentment, as it were, with him, you have to have that understanding that you are one and the same, that there is no separation between you and him. You're literally emulsified. You're pureed together. Okay, and that concept alone, and if you really think that through, changes everything. And you realize, whenever you put it that way, you immediately realize how much separate you've been believing you are from him. Right. And so my question is it okay to think that? Is that correct? Or is that presumptuous? Or is it arrogant? Is it, I don't know. But the more I think of it on those terms, the more it seems to make sense that would change everything for me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. That was a pivotal, when people would ask me 5, 6, 7 years ago, what was the most, if I could pick one scripture that was really key for me, because I think when you go from being, like, I was a worship leader and a speaker in churches, and Bible study leader and all of those, covered all of those bases. And I loved reading the Bible and learning the Bible and sharing the wisdoms of the Bible. But there were things that just didn't make sense to me. Yeah. And when you get to that, and so what I did was I set the Bible aside for a while. I did. I set it aside, as sacrilegious as that sounds to some people who might be like sucking oxygen right now with their gasp. What happened was scripture started coming up in my heart that really resounded with so much truth. And so when people would say, what's this? If you could pick one scripture then that makes the most sense to you during this season, for years, and still it is, I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. I am in the Father, and you are in me, and we are one. Yeah. That whole idea is the ultimate connection that we have to Spirit. Yeah. And that's what we have to each other. And I think Jesus was saying, when you get that there's no separation, you won't live in a them and us kind of way. You can't. And that's what happened. I started seeing. Well, it's like when I had my first child, when Caleb was born almost 12 years ago, I then saw every person who was in a wheelchair, or every homeless man on the corner in the parking lot. I was like, they are somebody's son. Yeah. They are my son. Me too. Because everything. Once you get connected to the life that's in you, and you go, I'm connected to all of life. Yeah. So that's what happened for me when I went through that tunnel experience with God, where I had this turnaround moment, and I went from churchianity to really just something very different, a very holistic faith with God. That's the one scripture that really stands out to me, is that, Christ is in the Father and I am in him, and we are one. And that's what life is supposed to be, because we will truly walk in love with each other. And
he goes on to say in that prayer, when he's like, help them to be as one as we are one. Mm-hmm. And I'm amazed at how many Christians. And I was talking with somebody last night, and a person in the conversation said, who is it that you pray to? Do you pray to Jesus or God? And the person said, well, it doesn't matter. They're both the same. And as Christians, we're so willing to go to that extent and say they are the same, they are one. But the moment we talk about us being one and the same with him, immediately they put the brakes on. And when Jesus says, I want them to be as one, which really even goes another step further, which might make some people uncomfortable, but that there is no separation between us and those we love. When you love someone, now I'm not saying there's no separation between us and other people. I'm saying there's no separation between us and those that we love. When you love somebody, you are pureed together. You are one. There is not you. There's no distinction between you and that person. And we are so willing to put the brakes on when it talks about us being one with God, but yet we have no issues at all when we talk about Jesus being one with God or being, or us being one with each other in a sense. We don't have the issue, but we are afraid to admit.
Well, let's put it out there. Let's put that big, scary thing out there because it's already in the middle of the room, because you know what people are afraid of. People are saying, well, if you're saying you're one with God,
and you're saying you are
God.
Right.
And I say yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, this is really a big deal because it's when I was lying in that bed in upstate New York and I heard what I called God at that time was words with no voice. Words with no voice said to me, I am love. And I went, I've always known that.
Yeah.
And then I heard words with no voice say a few minutes later, and you are love.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, of course, how could I not be when love made me? And
Exactly.
even Ephesians says, before the foundations of the earth.
Yeah.
If you want to go back theologically of Adam and Eve and sin and all of that, if that's even a part of the fabric of someone's belief system, God is saying, before then, that's when I made you.
Yeah.
When none of that happened, in my perfect love, before the foundations of the earth, that's when I chose you.
And we, there was a teaching that came out, I think it was in the 80s, and I believe it was Benny Hinn, who is not one of my favorite, in my opinion, the guy is just a fake. But the teaching was talking about we are little gods. And I mean, the Christian world went ballistic when that came out. But I listened to what was being said. I'm not sure it was Benny Hinn. I listened to what was being said. And it was essentially what we're talking about right now. But the idea that us saying we are God, and the reality of it is, none of us believe that we are, Yahweh, that we are actually the God of gods. We're not saying that we don't believe that. But at the same time, there's a part of us that we actually do. It's not that we believe that we are the one and only God and people should worship us or anything even like that. No one's ever saying that. I'm amazed at how quickly people will accuse you of saying that.
Well, look at Jesus. They said, who are you? He said, I am. They picked up their stones.
And he said, look at me, you've seen the Father.
Right.
And why would that not be true of us as well? I think it's just a matter of, do you have the guts to come out and say that? It feels arrogant. It feels like, and I believe it feels that way because so many people have bashed the idea of admitting to that. However, I'm learning, until you are willing to come out and boldly say, I am one with the Father.
Right.
There is no separation. Just in your own personal life, in your prayer life, in your thought life, in your own personal understanding of who you are, you don't even begin being a Christian until you get that point. That is the very foundation of Christianity. Unfortunately, our entire generation has built an entire life of Christianity without that foundation.
Right.
And this is why people they're shaken so easily. It doesn't work for them. It has to be a religion. They have to use fear to motivate them. Mm. If we could go back to the very foundation of it and say, he and I are one.
What a different life.
It does. It affects everything. No longer do you look at other people and see yourself as better or as, I am their teacher. They are less than me. I am closer to God than they are. That whole concept just doesn't, there's
away.
No room for it.
There's no room for it because love fills that space.
Yeah.
And love, there's no competition in love. And there's no greater than or less than.
Yeah.
I love the whole thing of what Jesus said is, that he doesn't consider equality with God to be grasped. And that's how I feel. Like I am of the essence of God. I am the creation of God. That's not saying I can fathom what it is to be God, but exactly. I am not unclear that I am part of the very fabric of his nature. So I have walked with a different confidence in the last 7 years than I did in all my years of learning about a God of love. There was something different about experiencing a God of love, and that scripture in particular hitting my heart and going, well, yeah, of course. How could I not be? It's like my something interrupted my belief in my identity, but my identity never changed. Sort of like when women, because I had to do all this research and stuff on the book that I just did, so many women with Hashimoto's in particular have been sexually abused, and it affected their identity of themselves as a woman, but it didn't change that they were female.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can have something that interrupts your grasping of your identity, but it doesn't mean that your identity has changed.
Right.
So I think that because we are made from spirit, we are made from God, and other theologies came in and interrupted that. It doesn't change that we are. I think, in fact, that's what I think we're returning to. That's the salvation I think we're supposed to be walking out.
Well, and we're returning to it in such a needed time. You consider an entire generation of people who it is normal for us to openly proclaim, almost in a prophetic voice and tone, that our righteousness is a filthy rags. There is no good in us. And we go off and say these things without the slightest thought of who it was that created us.
Right.
You would think that we were created by the devil. The way we talk.
It's horrible. How could a God of love make you and you not be love? How could a God who's amazing make you and you not be amazing? How can you go, oh God, you're so wonderful, you're so great, you're a creator, and we're made in his likeness and image, and we're not those things too? It just doesn't. I wrote a chapter in one of my other books called Spiritual Math, and that just is an equation that doesn't work.
Yeah, but it seems to work in the minds of people, and they feel good about themselves when they say it, and they get amen.
I know.
People act, and the moment that you say no, my heart is good.
Right.
My kids are going to this Oneness program at this church in Olympia, and Oneness is sort of a Bible program where they memorize Bible verses and they get patches and stuff, and they just absolutely love it. And so, the way I presented it to the kids is, kids, it is important that you speak several languages if you're going to live in this world. Number one, you need to probably be able to speak Spanish. There's probably another language beyond Spanish that you should learn, maybe French, maybe Chinese. It's good to have several languages, but another language you have to learn to speak is Christianese. I don't want it to be your primary language, but I do want you to be able to communicate with Christians, because my poor kids went to a Bible study out here. They had never been to a Bible study in their life, and they came home crying hysterical. They were like, we did not understand a word they were saying. And they started going through, they're like, what does it mean? Like, a kid would say his grace is sufficient for you. Like, they talked in Bible verses the whole time. It was completely a different language. So I'm trying to teach my kids Christianese because I want them to be able to communicate the heart of God to poor Christians who speak Christianese fluently yet don't know who Christ is, I mean, it sounds bad, but so they're going to this Awanas program, and they come home day one, and they got their first verse. They're so excited. The heart is deceitful and beyond cure. Who can understand it?
No.
That's their first verse. I'm just like, are you kidding me? I turned to Angie. I'm like, it begins at this age. Yeah. So every verse they're giving my kids is training them to believe they were created by Satan himself, that God is a terrible sculptor,
right.
And this is what they're memorizing. And we are born and bred and fed on this horrible diet. So it is no wonder everybody's like, why aren't there any miracles today like there used to be? Why isn't God healing? Why do you think? I mean, we've set ourselves up and have ingrained this in our thinking our whole life. And it just bewilders me that the moment somebody wants to stand up and proclaim, no, my heart is good now.
Right.
My heart thinks good thoughts. I don't have to have the 10 Commandments posted on my refrigerator to remind me not to kill my wife and kids. You know, I have a good heart that speaks to me. I have the heart of God.
Oh, I know.
And that, to even say I have the heart of God sounds like arrogance, but it's the very foundation of Christianity. You may as well not even be a Christian if you're not going to start there.
I agree. I don't know that I could agree more, actually, because I have people who ask me from my old church world, and I love these people. And you know what? There were so many good experiences of community and friendship within the context of that, but they'll come to me and they'll be like mystified because they know that my spirituality is different, and yet they're having a hard time pointing the finger at me because they see a greater peace and love and contribution of my life and humility. You know, like I don't have to use arrogance as my cover up for insecurity, and I don't have to be a know-it-all spiritually. I can go, wow, I don't know, and I kind of like that. I like living in the I don't know. There's mystery there and trust there and great faith there. But they'll say to me, well, don't you tell your kids about sin? And I say, why? You know, why would I tell them about sin? You know, when really what I want to build on is the fabric that they're created from. They're created from love. Yeah. And there's this incredible divine being, you know, that they're fashioned from, and it's within them. And it's wrapped in this human shell, and so there's this humanity and this divinity, and it's all together, and it's beautiful. It's exactly the way it was supposed to be. And
that's the beautiful thing. I love having kids and raising them with this new understanding. Not that you're supposed to be loving, but that you were created from the fabric of love.
Absolutely.
Once again, it comes down to most Christians look at love as there's a separation. I'm supposed to do this. There's love over here. There's me over here. I'm supposed to use this a bunch of times and try my best to do it. Versus the understanding of I was woven from the very fabric of it. This is who I am. Squirrels don't sit around and say, I need to learn how to collect nuts. They do it because it's who they are.
Absolutely.
And that is the way we're raising our kids. And let's just hope they don't become axe murderers and we find out we were wrong all along.
But the pendulum is swinging, because think about the generation that was really staunchly in the theology of a God who loves you is going to punish the hell out of you or punish you with hell. Like that came from a time where kids were getting whipped and hit, and that was legal, you know, and there was this whole physical punishment in the name of love. So that church theology was strong during a culture where that was strong, you know, so there was symmetry with that belief system. No pain, no gain, you know, you got to hurt to feel good. All of that was really strong in the culture and the mindset. And those of us who were raised from that are going, wow, I think there's a different way. I don't know exactly how to parent, but I know I don't want to parent that way because I know that I was afraid of the people who said they loved me the most. And so I know that I've lived a church life where I was afraid of the God who was supposed to be the one who loved me the most. And so when I stepped away from a lot of that thinking, I explored, okay, how do you live a life of love then that doesn't include fear as a motivator, punishment as another expression of love, you know, like where you don't have to do so many mental gymnastics to make that math work. You know, what is simple, what is true, and Jesus's burden is light. And so I believe that whenever we are walking around on a hot day with like this parka around us, Jesus is going, theologically, Jesus is going, that's not what I came to teach you. That doesn't fit with the climate of my love and the atmosphere of my love. Let me help you get that off so that you can live in the climate I created. And that's what I feel like Christ does for us.
Absolutely. And getting some of these understandings, to me, if you grasp the very foundation, the basic understanding, no longer is there a need for you to, in a sense, for you to study and be taught the things of God. They just flow naturally from you. You just get it. You know, when my kids came home from this Bible study, they were so devastated because there were so many different Bible verses quoted that my kids had never heard before, and they were just like, they felt like they were a million years behind all these other kids. And one kid had mentioned that he got a new computer, and he said, "I just love this new computer." And another kid, piped up, and you can imagine what the other kid said: "Do you love your computer more than God?"
Oh God, don't. No.
And they got into this big discussion of, do you love your computer more than God? What? And then, they're like, well, what is it in your life that you love more than God? My kids were just like, Dad, why? Why are they having this conversation? Well, Angie, after the kids went to bed, Angie was like, we failed. We failed as parents. Our kids don't know any Bible verses. They have no idea what it means to be, to bless and be a blessing and all these different things the kids were saying, She's like, I just feel like we failed. So I got the kids back up. And I said, I'm going to ask you a few questions. And first thing I said, I don't remember exactly how I put it, but I said, if you've got a friend who the doctor said she can no longer eat fried foods because of a health condition she has, and she loves fried foods, and you go out to lunch with her, should you order French fries? And they both said, well, no. I said, well, why? Well, because it would be hard for her to sit there and watch me eating French fries. I said, do you know that the Bible says that? Not in terms of fried foods, but the exact concept is in the Bible. Really? Yeah. Oh, do you know where, girls? No, I don't know where. Do you need to know where? No. I went on and asked them 10, 15, 20 questions just about life and love, and they knew immediately the heart of God answer to every one of those questions. They nailed it. And I told Ange, these kids get the heart of God. Absolutely. Without knowing a single Bible verse. They get it and they understand it.
That's right.
Great they can read the Bible, but it's only going to confirm something that is already beating inside their heart. They were raised knowing they have good hearts. They were always, we would drive around town and sing, Sydney is a lover of people, her heart is pink and bright. And you look at their yearbooks, it's amazing. Angie and I were looking at one of the girls' yearbooks. Every single kid that signed the yearbook said, you were my friend when no one else was my friend. Oh. Thank you for saving my life. Every kid, we could not believe it. We realized, though we didn't have to raise our kids teaching them to be loving to other people.
You just cultivated what the essence was they were created from. That's what I think is missing today, is that it takes so much work to indoctrinate a child in the sense of it's so opposite from their nature. Yeah. So it takes you teaching it in order for it to be indoctrinated. But it's so much easier if you just let them live who they are. It's so beautiful.
Imagine taking a Spanish course and you're learning the language of Spanish. But then every 20 minutes in the course, everyone in the class has to repeat, I can't do it. I will suck at speaking this language. My mouth won't do it. And then you continue to learn Spanish, and then 20 minutes later, you all again, I can't do it. Because that's what we do in Christianity. Your heart is deceitful. Your heart is bad. Okay, you need to be loving. You need to always remember God. You need to,
And where do those things happen
Your
from?
righteousness is a filthy rags.
Right, but those things come from the heart. And you're saying, I need you to cut off your heart. I need you to memorize these scriptures so that you can live from the heart.
Right.
But I've taught you to cut off your heart, to not trust your heart.
You can't trust your heart.
That's where all that good juju comes from. Yeah. That's where all that natural response to someone who's hurting. My kids, when someone falls, they don't laugh. They go run to help them. Yeah. Even in the race on the soccer field, God, the first time Seth was playing soccer, he didn't know the rules and everything. The first time he accidentally tripped someone when he kicked the ball out from under their feet, he was getting ready to get a goal. He went back to get the kid. He didn't understand because what was in his heart is you stop and help. And I love what their nature is to do.
I love that. Did you ever hear the story of it was a Special Olympics and they had all these people with Down syndrome getting ready to run a race and everyone was,
it's a great
deciding who was going to win and they took off and one of the kids fell towards the very end of the race and everyone stopped and ran back and helped him up and then they all ran through and ran through together. It was like there was no concept of winning or being the best or it was just in their nature to do a good thing.
So beautiful.
And I would like to see this generation of Christians go in that direction, but it's not going to happen until you're sort of raised with that understanding that you are one with him. That is what happened at the cross. That is what took place. The possibility of you being one in every respect with him. I think it'll change. I think it'll change every facet. In fact, I also think it'll change things like healing. We were talking about healing last night. We had a small group of people, and we were talking about, why people aren't getting healed. And I was saying one of the things that I started finding out, one time my daughter Sydney had RSV. She was in the hospital. She was in isolation, and she had been there for several days. She could barely even move. It was just awful. She was only 2 years old. And I finally got so fed up with it. I remember sitting there thinking to myself, I technically am the Son of God, or a son of God, just like Jesus. I should have that same power to walk over and heal, just like Jesus, rather than me praying for God to heal her. Mm-hmm. That's the way I was always raised. Lord, we ask right now that you touch her, that you heal her. Once again, there's that separation mentality. He's up there, I'm down here. I'm asking him to move on my behalf and trying to have faith he'll do so. My attitude this time was different. It was, I am Jesus, just like Jesus, one with Jesus, the same as Jesus, and I should be able to do this. So I walked over, laid hands on her, and said, I don't remember what I said. It was probably in King James Version and sounded really profound or something, but whatever it was. I laid hands, she was healed instantly, literally up within seconds, running around playing. The doctors walked in, he was like, whoa, what happened here? And they released us like an hour later. We were on our way home. And
amazing.
And I realized the difference between that time I prayed for her, which I didn't really pray for her, I healed her. And Angie was like, well, was it God or was it you? And I'm like, ultimately the power came from him, but he and I are one. Mm. And I'm not saying every time since then I've prayed they've gotten healed, but many times since then I've came with that understanding. But see, I wasn't raised with that understanding. I think it'll be easier for my kids who were raised from the very beginning. I have to get in that frame of mind. I literally have to go through it in my brain and say, okay, I believe in Jesus, therefore, I have to do that stupid thing.
They don't have to.
They won't have to do that.
But see, that's why we're the pioneers of that kind of faith in our families and in this generation. And that's what's happening, is that people, like I was talking about, who were raised in that other way of thinking are going, wait, that doesn't work, because that's a separation mindset in the words you're talking about today. But what can I do to live more in the connected mindset, in that belief, And so our generation, you and me, Darin, we're living that out, the processing of that out, so that we can raise our kids to stay in the natural
there's no
flow.
processing.
There's no processing.
Right.
They just go through it. In fact, people come up to me and they say, how come you don't teach your kids the Bible? And I say, well, I used to, and I still will mention scriptures sometimes, but you'd be hard pressed to find a Bible, like at an easy, it's not on every bedstand like it used to be. Right. But what I have told the children is that, look, if everything crumbled and there were no buildings with crosses and there were no books, this is where the Spirit lives. I put my hand on their chest. The Spirit lives here. This is where you listen, because God wired you to know how to listen to him, and he knows how to speak to you. So you could be, away from people, and you can be away from buildings or structures. And the Spirit, who was here before every building was built and every book was ever written, is here. Yeah. And so that's what I want them to learn. And one of my neighbors got this love-fear mentality still. And he said to me, he's from Russia and he's in his late 50s. And he said, you be careful, because you're raising these boys and they should be spanked and they should be taught this scripture. And he was getting kind of harsh with me. And he goes, and he's kind of almost sounded like a curse. He's like, well, you better be careful, because you don't know, you're raising the boys this way, then something bad could happen to them. Yeah. And I said, you know what? And I was a little choked up. I said, I am aware every day that we are all a breath away from life or death. I am aware of the grace of what it is to be a parent, having both my kids have heart issues and having both my kids have to be hospitalized. And so I understand that, maybe a little bit, not as full as some other parents, but fuller than maybe I would have, right? Yeah. And I said, so I'm aware. I said, my job in life is to listen. And I said, and my job every day is to listen. And I said, and if God forbid something happened to my children on that day, my job would still be to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that's what we can empower each other with. It's no more, you got to go to Darin the guru, Stacey the guru,
right.
any church to be the guru,
Yeah.
any book to be the guru. It's that we empower each other to listen, because the God who made us hardwired us to hear him. And I just don't think I think what's interrupted is not God's flow to us, it's our belief about the flow. That's there.
Absolutely. It's our belief that we're even capable of hearing him, because we were raised being told that we're not capable. And I was saying to somebody the other day on the phone, show me one place in the Bible where somebody struggled to hear from God. Yet in Christianity today, it's like, I want to hear you. You do a seminar on how to hear from God, it'll be packed. Yet no one in the Bible ever struggled to hear from God. But we have separated ourselves so much from him and gone so far to make sure that we understand that nothing about us is like him, when that is the opposite of what we should have been doing. So we're to the point now where we're not even sure we can hear him. Think of that. Imagine your kid saying, Mommy, I don't know if I can hear you. Well, come here. Well, I didn't hear you. What did you say? Come here. Well, I didn't hear that. That doesn't even make sense. But that's how pathetic we've become in this generation. And it is as simple as getting rid of that separation, acknowledging that you are one. Go ahead. If it sounds arrogant, go ahead and do it anyway, and realize this is what he wanted. But it's a whole new theology, and some people have to literally leave the church they're at because they will not stand for what we're talking about. I mean, it is considered heresy what we're talking about. But I tell you, it's the foundation of it all.
It is, and I think the churches could get there. I do. I just think it's like moving a big ship, though. And there, Carolyn Mace, who writes real woo-woo books, but she talks about energy anatomy, and she talks about tribal thinking, and that when you have a big tribe, it's just going to move slower. It can get there as long as the collective, but it takes a while for the collective to come to those terms. And a lot of times what it takes is the pastor to have the revelation. So that,
you're right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it could get there, but I think a lot of it is just happening by people like you and me and Rob Bell and all these people having their individual journey where something didn't sit right. And they went to God about it, and they went inward about it.
And it is happening worldwide. It really is. There is this shift taking place. And the thing that I want to see that really detonates everything we're talking about right now, for anyone out there, the very thing that detonates this, the bridge, if you will, from the way you were raised to think to what we are talking about, and it won't even hit people when they first hear it, and I wish we had more time, but it comes down to this: believe. And we have taken believe, and it's been so watered down and so drained of its meaning. It turns out in most Christian minds to mean, I'll buy that. Or to mean, that sounds reasonable to me. I believe in this story. I believe in the story of Jesus dying and raising again. And we don't understand the very power of, no, I believe I am one with him. The very avenue through which this can be detonated in your life is as simple as believing it. That's what it comes down to. That is what it means to be a Christian, is believing that with the same belief as a child has in Santa Claus. There's no question. You just simply believe it. And for a lot of people, that's going to take some chewing on, but I'll tell you, most people that I meet in the Christian world, it's kind of like, you meet somebody who's built this skyscraper, and you walk up to the guy and he's looking at the plans, and they're finally painting it. They've got the whole thing up, and you're looking at the blueprints, and you see that they forgot to lay the foundation, and you don't know how to tell them. It's like, there's no way to slide it under the building, but I don't know how to tell you this, but you need to tear down the whole thing and start over again. And the great thing, though, is it doesn't take that long to build it again. And most people would be glad to tear it down because the building has been nothing but a lemon from the day they started the work on it. And they need to get that foundation set. And I tell you, I'd rather be sleeping in my sleeping bag on a cold foundation, as long as it was the right one, than be nice and warm in a building that's shaky and is going to fall, because most Christians' theology and their whole understanding of God is exactly that. we're out of time. Good to talk to you, young Stacey. I wish we had more time.
Make it happen.
Well, we'll have to do something. Maybe you can come out to Olympia and do like phone podcast today. Thanks for being on. Hey, thanks for joining us. Come back soon, my friends. Hopefully we'll have another California podcast with my wonderful adventures out here. You have just been released. Your